Tom had been on the outpost for 6 months, but it still felt strange to him every morning. The station floated far from any large star, a quiet place built from dull silver metal and wide glass halls. Ships came and went, but never too many. This was not a busy trade hub. It was a place meant for watching, learning, and slow trust. Tom's job was simple on paper. He was a cultural officer for humans. That meant he talked, listened, observed, and reported. In reality, it meant he spent most of his time being watched. Humans were still new to the wider galaxy. Some species said humans were too emotional. Others said they were too calm. There were stories about human wars, human endurance, and human stubbornness. No one agreed on what humans really were, and that made many aliens nervous. Tom understood that fear. Humans had once feared the unknown too. He walked through the central corridor at the same time every day. He liked routine. It helped others relax when they could predict his movements. His boots made a soft sound against the floor as he passed food stalls, data terminals, and quiet rest areas. Alien eyes followed him from many shapes and heights. Some aliens had skin like stone. Some floated instead of walking. Some had too many eyes while others had none at all. Tom nodded politely to all of them. Few nodded back. At the far end of the corridor stood the security post. That was where Mira usually was. Mira belonged to a species that reminded humans of dogs, though she was far more than that. She walked upright, wore a fitted guard uniform, and carried a standard stun baton at her side. Her ears sat high on her head, always moving, always listening. Her tail showed her mood more clearly than her face ever did. Right now it was stiff. She had been assigned to this post only 3 weeks ago. Since then she had seen Tom pass every day. She knew his name, his rank, and his species file by heart. Still she did not trust him. She watched him approach, her eyes following every movement. Humans did not bare their teeth when nervous. They did not raise fur or flatten ears. That made them hard to read. To Mira that was dangerous. Tom noticed her gaze as he always did. He stopped a few steps away from the security line and waited. He never crossed without permission. He never rushed. He never stood too close. Mira liked that. She did not know why, but she did. "Morning," Tom said calmly. His voice was even, not loud, not soft. It carried no challenge. Mira hesitated before responding. Her translator hummed quietly in her ear. "State your purpose," she said. It was the same question every day. "Cultural archive visit," Tom replied. "Same as yesterday." Mira checked her pad. She already knew the answer. Everything matched. There was no reason to delay him. Still she waited. Her instincts told her to stay alert. Humans were predators according to old records. Omnivores, pack-based, persistence hunters. They chased prey until it collapsed. That idea made her tail twitch. Tom stood patiently. He kept his hands visible, fingers relaxed. He knew that some species feared hidden hands. Finally, Mira stepped aside and gestured for him to pass. "Clear," she said. "Thank you," Tom replied. As he walked past, Mira caught a faint scent. Not fear. Not aggression. Something steady and warm. It confused her. Tom continued down the hall toward the archive wing. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the space was quiet, filled with floating screens and slow-moving lights. This was where knowledge from hundreds of species was stored. Tom liked this place. It reminded him that the galaxy was bigger than fear. He sat at a terminal and began reviewing records about first contact failures. He studied mistakes so humans would not repeat them. Words mattered. Silence mattered. Body language mattered most of all. Outside, Mira remained at her post, but her thoughts followed the human. She had trained for years to be a guard. Her species valued loyalty, reaction speed, and protection of the group. Mistakes could get people hurt. Or worse. Humans made her nervous because they did not act like prey. They also did not act like clear predators. They were something in between. That afternoon, the station lights dimmed slightly, signaling the shift change. Mira stretched her shoulders and adjusted her stance. Tom exited the archive and approached again, moving at the same calm pace. Their eyes met briefly. Mira felt something strange then. Not fear. Not anger. Curiosity. "Finished already?" she asked, surprising herself. Tom smiled a little. "For today, yes." She nodded, unsure what else to say. As Tom walked away, Mira watched his back. He did not hurry. He did not look over his shoulder. He trusted the station. He trusted her. That trust sat heavy in her chest. Mira had been taught that trust was earned through strength, through dominance, through control. But the human had shown none of those things. And yet, somehow he felt solid. Unmovable. As the station drifted silently through space, one human and one alien stood on opposite sides of the corridor, both sensing that something important had already begun, though neither yet understood what it would cost or what it would change. The patrol had been quiet, almost boring. That usually made Mira uneasy. She walked down the long corridor near the docking wing, her boots making soft taps against the floor. The lights above glowed a steady white. Air vents hummed in a slow, even rhythm. Everything felt normal, but Mira had learned not to trust quiet. Her ears twitched as she listened. Behind her, Tom followed at a respectful distance. He had asked permission to observe a patrol shift, and command had agreed. Humans wanted to understand station security habits, and Tom was known for keeping out of the way. He carried no weapon. He never did. Mira knew that. She still did not relax. "Stay close," she said without turning around. "I will," Tom replied. They passed storage doors, sealed labs, and empty rest zones. A few aliens moved through side halls, nodding briefly to Mira and staring openly at Tom. Humans still drew attention wherever they went. Mira kept her focus forward. Her tail moved slowly, showing alert calm. She checked her wrist display again. No warnings. No alerts. That was when the alarm screamed. It was loud. Too loud. A sharp sound that cut through the air and slammed into Myra's instincts. Red lights flashed along the corridor walls. The floor vibrated once, hard. Unknown threat. Her training took over before thought could catch up. She spun toward the nearest moving shape. That shape was Tom. To Myra's instincts, he was suddenly a possible attacker. A large figure. Close. Unfamiliar. Her heart raced. Her vision narrowed. The sound of the alarm drowned out reason. She lunged. Her teeth closed around fabric and skin before her mind fully understood what she was doing. Tom felt the impact but did not scream. The corridor seemed to freeze. The alarm cut out just as suddenly as it had begun. Red lights blinked off, returning to white. The air went still. Mira realized what had happened. Her eyes widened. Her jaw loosened. She pulled back at once, stumbling a step away. Her ears flattened hard against her head. Her tail dropped low. Tom stood there, unmoving. A thin tear marked his sleeve. He looked down at his arm, then back at her. His face showed surprise but not anger. Around them, doors slid open. Guards poured in from side corridors. Different species. Different shapes. All armed. All staring. Someone shouted an order. Another guard raised a weapon. "Stand down," Tom said calmly. His voice was steady. Clear. Not loud. The guards hesitated. Mira felt her chest tighten. Her breath came fast. She lowered herself to one knee without being told, head bowed in submission. In her culture, an unprovoked bite was a serious offense. One that could end a career. Or a life. She tried to speak but the words stuck. Tom lifted his uninjured hand slowly, palm open. "It was an alarm," he said. She reacted. "No one is hurt." One of the guards stepped closer. "Human, you are bleeding." Tom glanced again at his arm. The skin was broken but the wound was shallow. Blood had barely started to flow. "I've had worse from a door hinge," he said lightly. That confused everyone. Medical staff rushed in anyway. A small drone scanned Tom's arm with a soft blue light. It beeped once, then displayed a low-risk symbol. "Minor injury," the drone announced. "Treatment optional." Mira stared at the floor. Shame burned through her. Her instincts had betrayed her. Worse, they had betrayed someone who trusted her. She waited for shouting. For punishment. For anger. It did not come. Tom crouched down slowly, careful not to startle her. "Mira," he said gently. She flinched at her name. "It's all right," he continued. "You did your job." The alarm was real. One of the guards checked a data pad. "False trigger," they reported. "System error." Myra's shame deepened. "I failed," she whispered. Tom shook his head. "You protected the station. That matters." She looked up at him, then truly looked. He was still calm. His breathing was steady. His eyes held no blame. That frightened her more than anger ever could. In her experience, beings who were hurt responded with dominance or fear. Humans, it seemed, could choose something else. Command officers arrived and took control of the scene. Questions were asked. Statements recorded. Mira answered everything honestly. Tom backed her at every step. When it was over, the corridor slowly returned to normal. Guards dispersed. The station moved on. Mira remained where she was, feeling small. Tom stood beside her for a moment. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded once. "I'm sorry," she said again. I know, Tom replied. And I forgive you. Those words stayed with her long after he walked away. The station did not forget the incident. Neither did Mira. But something had changed. The human had been bitten. And he had chosen calm. That choice echoed through the silent halls, leaving behind a question no one could ignore. Tom did not shout. He did not pull away in panic. He did not raise his hand. Instead, he slowly lowered himself to the floor. The metal beneath him was cool and smooth. He sat with his back against the wall, legs bent, movements slow and clear. Every action was careful, like he was speaking without words. His breathing stayed even. In and out. Come. Mira froze. Her teeth had already released him, but her body was still tense, ready for impact that never came. Her heart was racing. Her ears rang from the alarm that had already faded. Her instincts screamed that danger should follow. It didn't. Tom rested his hands on his knees, palms open. He made sure they stayed where she could see them. He looked at her, not directly into her eyes but just past them. That mattered. Some species found direct staring threatening. Tom had learned that. It's okay, he said softly. His voice was low and steady. Not sharp. Not shaking. Myra's legs trembled. She took one step back, then another. Her mind tried to catch up with what her body had already done. She had attacked an unarmed being. A guest. A human. She waited for pain. For punishment. For dominance. Tom stayed where he was. It's over, he said. The noise is gone. Mira swallowed. Her throat felt dry. Her tail was low, almost touching the floor. She forced herself to look at his arm again. There was blood, yes, but not much. The wound was small. Too small for what she expected. That confused her. Humans were supposed to be fragile. That was what some files said. Soft skin. Weak senses. Yet here he was, bitten by a trained guard, sitting calmly like nothing important had happened. You should be afraid, she said without thinking. Tom blinked once. Maybe later, he replied. Right now you are. That made her chest tighten. She did not deny it. The corridor felt very large and very quiet. Other beings stood at a distance, watching. No one moved closer. No one spoke. It was like time had slowed around the two of them. Tom shifted slightly, careful not to make sudden movement. Mira, he said. Listen to me. Her ears twitched. Hearing her name from his mouth felt strange. Too familiar. You reacted fast, he continued. That means you care about protecting others. I hurt you, she said. Yes, Tom answered. He did not soften the truth. But I am still here. That made her look at him again. Humans were not supposed to speak like that. In her experience, pain always came with anger or fear. Pain demanded response. Pain demanded balance. Tom showed neither. You're not angry? She asked. No. Why? Tom thought for a moment. He did not rush his answer. Because I understand, he said. And because if I lose control now, it will only make things worse. Myra's breathing slowed just a little. Medical drones hovered nearby, waiting. Security stood ready. Everyone expected the human to demand action. To demand justice. Tom waved the drone back gently. Give us a second. The drone paused, then obeyed. Mira noticed that. Even machines listened to him. She lowered herself slowly until she was sitting on the floor across from him. Not kneeling. Not standing. Sitting. Equal height. Her muscles ached with tension. I was trained to react, she said quietly. Not to think. Tom nodded. Humans trained like that once too. That surprised her. You? She asked. Not me, Tom said. But my kind. He shifted his arms slightly. The pain was there but distant. He had learned long ago how to place pain somewhere else in his mind. A skill taught by time, not by schools. We learned that reacting without thought keeps you alive for a moment, he said. But thinking keeps others alive longer. Mira stared at him. Her mind tried to match his words with the being in front of her. You are not weak, she said slowly. Tom smiled just a little. Neither are you. That made something in her chest loosen. The silence stretched again. This time it was not heavy. Guards shifted. Someone whispered. But no one interrupted. Myra's eyes dropped to the small tear in Tom's sleeve. You should report me, she said. That is the rule. Tom shook his head. Rules exist to protect people. Not to destroy them. That is not how it works here. Then maybe it should change, Tom replied. The words were simple but they carried weight. Mira looked around the corridor. So many eyes. So much expectation. The human had power here whether he wanted it or not. And he was choosing not to use it. Her ears lowered fully now, not in fear but in respect. "I don't understand humans," she admitted. "That's all right," Tom said. "We don't always understand ourselves either." That earned a small, nervous breath from her that might have been a laugh. Finally, Tom slowly pushed himself up from the floor. He did it carefully, giving her time to adjust. He stood straight but relaxed, not towering over her. He rolled his shoulder once, testing movement. "See," he said. "Still works." Mira stood too, mirroring him without realizing it. The medical drone approached again. This time Tom allowed it. It cleaned the wound quickly. A light band sealed the skin. "Done," the drone said. Mira watched the process closely. She memorized every step, every sound. This moment would stay with her for a long time. Security officers stepped closer, ready to resume control. Tom turned slightly toward them. "There will be a report," he said. "Make it accurate." "Yes," one officer replied. Tom looked back at Mira. "You did what you were trained to do," he said. "Now you can learn what comes next." She nodded, unable to speak. As Tom walked away, his steps were steady. The corridor slowly returned to motion. Conversations resumed. Systems hummed. But Mira remained still for a long moment. She had bitten a human. And instead of fear or fury, she had met patience. That calm settled deep inside her, quiet but strong, and she knew she would never forget it. The officers arrived in a tight group, their boots striking the floor in sharp rhythm. Different uniforms, different species, all trained to take control. Their faces showed concern, suspicion, and readiness. Incidents involving humans were never treated lightly. Mira stood straight at attention, her hands at her sides, her tail low and still. She did not look at Tom. In her culture, facing the one you had harmed before judgment was given was a sign of deep shame. Tom stood a short distance away, calm as ever. "Report," one officer said. Another officer pointed at Tom's arm. "Human injured. Guard involved." Mira's chest tightened. She was ready for what came next. Suspension. Removal. Worse. Before anyone could continue, Tom stepped forward. "There will be no punishment," he said. The words were simple, but they cut through the noise like a clean blade. The officers turned to him at once. "That is not your decision," one of them replied. Tom nodded. "I understand. But I am the injured party. And I am asking that this be treated as a learning moment, not a crime." The officers exchanged looks. This was not expected. "She attacked you," another officer said. "That is serious." "Yes," Tom agreed. "And it was not done with intent." Mira finally looked up, shocked. Tom continued, his voice steady and clear. "He did not rush. He did not raise it. There was an alarm. Her training told her to act fast. She did. That training exists to protect this station." "That does not excuse injury," an officer replied. "No," Tom said. "But it explains it." Silence followed. Tom took a slow breath. "Humans learned something a long time ago," he said. "When you face danger, panic feels natural. Anger feels powerful. But both make situations worse." The officers listened, some skeptical, some curious. "We survived by learning control," Tom continued. "Not because we are fearless, but because we are afraid and choose not to let that fear lead." Mira's ears lifted slightly. She listened without moving. "Staying calm in danger is not weakness," Tom said. "It is a skill. One learned through mistakes, pain, and loss." One officer frowned. "You expect us to ignore protocol?" "No," Tom replied. "I expect you to remember why protocol exists." The words hung in the air. Another officer checked the data pad. "Medical scan shows minimal injury." Tom nodded. "Exactly." Mira's hands clenched slightly. She had expected anger. Instead, the human was defending her. "She will learn from this," Tom added. Punishment would only teach fear. That struck something deep inside Mira. Fear was how she had been trained. One officer studied Tom closely. "Why are you doing this?" Tom met their gaze. "Because if humans want to be trusted here, we must show restraint when it matters most." The corridor was quiet again. Finally, the lead officer spoke. "This incident will be recorded. No disciplinary action at this time." Mira felt her knees weaken with relief. "However," the officer added, turning to her, "additional training will be required." "Yes," Mira said quickly. "I accept." The officers began to disperse, still watching Tom with new eyes. Humans were not reacting the way the files predicted. When they were gone, only Tom and Mira remained. Mira did not know how to speak. "You protected me," she said at last. Tom shrugged slightly. I told the truth. You could have stayed silent. Yes, Tom agreed. But silence can harm too. She lowered her head. I thought humans were reckless. Too emotional. Tom smiled faintly. We can be. That's why we practice not being. That answer stayed with her. She thought of her training. Fast reactions. Strong bites. No hesitation. It had saved lives, but it had also hurt one. You chose not to strike back, she said. Why? Tom looked down the corridor thinking. Because strength doesn't need to prove itself. Mira felt something shift inside her. A belief she had held for years cracked and began to fall apart. Humans were not weak. They were holding something back. She straightened, tail lifting slightly, not in challenge but in respect. Thank you, she said quietly. Tom nodded. You're welcome. As he walked away, Mira watched him go. His steps were unhurried. His posture relaxed. She realized then that calm like that was not natural. It was chosen. And that choice, she understood now, was what truly made humans dangerous and worthy of respect. The apology came later, when the station lights dimmed to their softer night cycle and the corridors grew quiet. Most beings were resting. Machines worked in low hums. The outpost drifted through space like a thought held between stars. Mira stood outside the human quarters for a long time before knocking. Her ears were lowered, not in fear but in respect. Her tail was still. She had removed her duty belt and weapons, as tradition required when offering a formal apology. In her culture, this was not something done lightly. Inside, Tom was organizing data pads at his desk. He heard the knock and turned. Come in, he said. The door slid open. Mira stepped inside and stopped 3 paces from him. She did not look around. Her focus stayed on the floor in front of his feet. I have come to speak, she said carefully. Tom nodded and set the pad aside. I'm listening. Mira lowered herself slowly until she was kneeling. Her ears flattened fully now. Her head bowed. I offer formal apology, she said. For harming you. For failing control. For dishonoring my duty. Tom stood quietly. He did not interrupt. He had learned that apologies meant more when allowed to finish. Mira took a steady breath. In my kind, a bite is not only attack. It is claim of power. I did not mean that. But meaning does not erase action. She lifted her eyes just enough to see his boots. I expected anger, she continued. Or punishment. That is how strength is shown among us. Tom crossed his arms loosely, listening. But you did not give me that, Mira said. You gave me calm. Her voice lowered. That calm frightened me more than anger ever could. Tom raised an eyebrow slightly. Why? Mira hesitated, then spoke honestly. Anger can be challenged. Fear can be answered. Calm cannot. Calm means choice. She finally looked up at him. You were hurt, she said. And you chose restraint. That means you were never out of control. You were always deciding. The room felt very quiet. In my training, Mira continued, we are taught that predators show dominance. Loud voices. Fast violence. Humans were said to be dangerous because of emotion. She shook her head slowly. That was wrong. Tom leaned back against the wall. We can be emotional, he said. We just don't always act on it. That is what makes it frightening, Mira replied softly. She placed one hand over her chest. I acknowledge fault. I ask forgiveness. Not because command demands it, but because I understand now. Tom considered her words. He saw no fear in her eyes now. Only sincerity. I forgive you, he said again. Myra's shoulders loosened slightly, like a weight had been lifted. There is something else, she added. Since the incident, others have spoken. Tom tilted his head. About what? About humans, Mira said. She explained how guards whispered during shift changes. How technicians paused conversations when humans walked by, not in fear but in thought. How even command officers reviewed human history again, slower this time. They say humans are the species that does not rush, she said. That you carry violence quietly, like a tool you choose not to use. Tom smiled faintly. We've learned what happens when we don't choose. Mira rose to her feet slowly. Her ears lifted just a little. I will remember this, she said. And I will teach it. Tom nodded. That's all anyone can do. She took a step back, preparing to leave. Then she paused. One question, she said. Go ahead. If you had been angry, Mira asked, what would have happened? Tom met her eyes. His voice stayed gentle. More people would have been hurt, he said. Including me. That answer stayed with her. Mira bowed her head once more, then turned and left. The next day the station felt different. Humans were still watched, but not with the same fear. Not with the same assumptions. There was curiosity now. Respect. Caution of a new kind. Tom walked through the main corridor as he always did. Same pace. Same calm steps. Aliens nodded to him more often. Some even stepped aside without being asked. Mira watched from her post, ears relaxed, tail steady. She understood something now. Humanity was not dangerous because it was wild. Humanity was dangerous because it was controlled. As Tom disappeared down the hall, quiet words passed through the station, carried from voice to voice, system to system. Humans were not weak. They simply chose when to be strong. The days that followed were calm but not empty. Mira noticed the changes first. They were small things. Easy to miss if one was not paying attention. A pause in conversation when Tom passed, not from fear but from thought. A technician asking Tom a question instead of checking a manual. A guard choosing words more carefully around humans. The station was learning. Mira stood at her post and watched Tom move through the corridor each morning. His routine did not change. Same path. Same pace. Same calm posture. He did not act like someone who had gained influence. He did not look proud. That, somehow, made the influence stronger. During one shift, a junior guard named Eli approached Mira. His ears were half raised, uncertain. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. "Is what true?" Mira replied. "That the human was bitten," Eli said. "And did nothing." Mira nodded once. "It is true." Eli frowned. "Why?" Mira thought carefully before answering. "Because he could." That answer spread. Later that cycle, Command requested Myra's presence. She entered the briefing room alone. Several officers were already there, screens glowing with reports and recorded footage. Tom was not present. They asked Mira to explain the incident again. Not the facts. They already had those. They wanted her thoughts. "How did the human behave?" one officer asked. "Controlled," Mira replied. "Fear response. Minimal. Anger? None." The officers exchanged looks. One leaned forward. "Do you believe this behavior is genuine?" Mira did not hesitate. "Yes." "Not deception?" "No." "Why?" Mira answered honestly. "Because deception takes effort." His calm did not. That ended the questioning. When Mira returned to duty, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. Pride. Not in herself. In understanding something important. Tom, meanwhile, continued his work. He logged cultural notes, revised reports, and held quiet meetings with other envoys. He never mentioned the incident unless asked. When asked, he spoke simply and without drama. That mattered too, Mira realized. He did not turn pain into a story of power. One evening, the station hosted a shared rest cycle. No official purpose. Just space to exist together. Humans sat with others. Food was exchanged. Music played softly. Mira attended, though she stayed near the edge. Tom noticed her and gave a small wave. Not calling attention. Just acknowledgement. She walked over. "You are adapting well," Tom said. "So are you," Mira replied. They stood in silence for a moment, watching a group of different species attempt a slow, awkward dance. "Do humans ever regret restraint?" Mira asked suddenly. Tom considered the question. "Sometimes," he said. "Especially when it hurts." "Then why keep choosing it?" "Because the alternative hurts more people," Tom replied. Mira nodded. That answer fit everything she had seen. As the cycle ended, word spread beyond the station. Reports traveled faster than ships. Human restraint during a violent moment became a footnote, then a discussion, then a quiet warning. Not all strength announces itself. On a distant outpost, a commander adjusted protocols involving humans. On another station, guards were instructed to watch human hands less and human reactions more. Mira did not know any of this yet. But she felt it. One shift, an alarm sounded again. Different sector. Different cause. This time, Mira felt her instincts rise, and then settle. She took a breath. She thought of Tom sitting on the floor. Open hands. Calm voice. She responded with control. The incident passed without harm. Later, she realized something important. Calm could be taught. That night, she sent a message to Tom. "I used what you showed me," it read. He replied simply. "Good." The station continued to drift through space. Quiet. Observant. Change. And somewhere between steel walls and distant stars, a simple truth had taken root. Humanity did not survive by being the loudest. It survived by knowing when not to be. The station whispered that truth softly again and again, until it no longer sounded strange. It sounded real.